Hello, and welcome back, everyone. Today we will be discussing episode number 33 of the Play Dicely campaign, Brulbar by Night. So this session starts off with the group accompanying Elowyn to the house of her nephew, whom she's only met like when he was a baby. So they're all standing outside his door, and Elowyn knocks. Though, of course, the entire party's suspicious about the whole ordeal, so Elowyn sets up communications telepathically with Nell, which later becomes Drac. And then also she's trying to find a party member who knows detect magic, because Elowyn's just having a hard time believing this whole scenario. Eventually, Valoon opens the door and is surprised that the entire party is there, but welcomes them all into his home. The party finds themselves in a bit of a bachelor pad, though well furnished, many of plants. He's definitely just living alone. Younger elf. As he's already been up to this point, he seems like a pretty normal guy. So Elowyn and the party chat with Valoon and learn about his history, like him growing up in the Wilder. He was in the Battle of Brulbar and pursued an education in magic and eventually became part of the Malesh in Brulbar after traveling the Wilder and finding it was a bit too odd for his taste. So the one thing that made Elowyn very suspicious about this whole ordeal was when she first met Valoon when he was first born, was that he had the same brown eyes that his mother and Elowyn both have. But now meeting Valoon in Brulbar, his eyes are blue, like his dad's. But fun fact for you all out there, it's not uncommon for the eye and hair color of babies to change within the first year, so I've played on a bit of that, which did kind of proc some suspicion in the party. What can I say? I do it all the time. But the whole conversation ends up being really nice. Like, they get to know each other. Valoon gets to know Elowyn, and the party is all just there and being supportive, and eventually they wrap up their business, but not before Valoon asks Nell about her mithril armor that she wears. He recognizes it as an older type of armor that was worn in his unit, the High Riders of Lodothram, and offers to pay her 2,000 gold pieces to get that armor from her. Nell decides to think about the offer before committing, and the party takes their leave, says their farewells, and heads back to the Wanderlust Inn. When they get back to the inn, the party has a bit of a debrief, making sure Elowyn's okay. And this leads to Elowyn just wondering why, despite her being out of the life of her family, her sister is still sad despite having this perfect life with a son, a family, and a rich home. And Elowyn still blames herself for her sister's sadness. The party continues to be supportive, and Nell gives Elowyn the harshest probably words she's needed to hear to just stop wallowing in her sorrow, pick herself up, and she's not special. But I think this talk with Elowyn and Valoon might be a big shift for Elowyn's personality moving forward. The party then settles down to have a long rest, but not before Gideon receives a letter, once again from the House of the Learned Circle, but this time from Hillip Rowe, to reschedule their meeting for the following morning. He invites Gideon and the entire party, should they decide to come. Before he goes to bed, Drac goes on a bit of a casting spree, messaging Nell's sister on her behalf, getting a snarky response. And then Drac messages his own brother, where he gets no response. Elowyn, in the meantime, is visited by Waylayla for the first time in a while, and Waylayla gives Elowyn some leads on this miracle spell that Elowyn was talking about with her last they spoke, as well as on the nature of magical contracts and whether they might be changed. Abe spends his evening reading this book that he got from Charity Cozybug, which turns out to be a journal written by Faye Applebutter, one of the heroes of the Desolation. In this journal, Abe learns about Faye and her traveling companions, Pascalis Oakenthorn, and a name we've already heard a lot in the campaign, Cardrak Mithrilcoat. Before these three were known as the Heroes of the Desolation, Abe reads that they had previously been known as the Zemplars, and he reads about their exploits all over the course of his long rest. The following morning, the party all together goes to meet with Hillip Rowe at the House of the Learned, but they're also surprised to find that Armadon Ferric Ironbender is there, the leader of the Arturian Knights. Gideon spearheads most of this conversation, asking Hillip about his time when he was Reeve of Balesville, as well as if he maintains any connection with the current Reeve, Lady Cater Bexley. But they also learn from Ferric that apparently there's been a mysterious death of an Arturian knight in Balesville as of late. After going through all of Gideon's questions and learning more about Hillip himself, they turn the conversation around on the party. And Hillip Rowe pulls out this document, which has been signed by all 6 members of the Learned Circle. And this document he's produced is an offer to the Seekers of Sycramund. The Learned Circle would gift them with a plot of land and a base of operations, either near Brulbar or Valenbridge, and the Seekers would become Heroes of the Realm, a title that would boost morale in the Ascendancy, and would ask that this party come to the aid of the Ascendancy should it call. The party, caught off guard, makes a copy of this document so that they can think about it. The Seekers then have the day to themselves, so they stop by the statue of the Heroes of Brulbar. From here, the party divvies up. Abe and Gideon both go back to the inn, where Abe continues to read that journal he was gifted, and Gideon goes to collect supplies and rations for their upcoming trip aboard an airship. In Abe's continued reading of this journal, he learns that Pascalis had obtained a cursed sword, which made him more aggressive, more violent, and Faye and Kardrak banished this sword and freed him of this curse. Meanwhile, Drac, Elowyn, and Azaria all go and collect some gear and equipment for their journey, and also check in with Shandier Tarset to confirm the time they should be leaving aboard the airship. But before the party all does that, they put Nell in a rickshaw heading to the Temple of the High Planetary, where Nivara Quillant III abandons her duties to take Nell on a tour turned date around the city of Brulbar. Now, I would be scolded by my players if I failed to mention the natural 20 that I rolled on camera to determine if Nivara looked back after Nell and Nivara parted ways after their date. This was apparently a very big moment. Everyone was on board, it seemed. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad it played out like that. As the day comes to an end, the party all agrees that they're going to sign this offer from the Learned Circle and decide to make Small Keep their base of operations in the small town of the same name, just south of Brulbar. The party makes their final preparations and says their goodbyes to Brulbar, though now with more concrete reasons to come back. The party collects Hildy and the horses. They get their weapon commissions from Eckhart, the gnome tinkerer. Nell agrees to sell her mithril armor for $2,000, which they drop their signed letter off at Hillip Rowe's office, and Elowyn says goodbye to her nephew. The party sets their sights on this airship trip that is coming their way, with their next stops including the gnomish town of New Fugleby, quite likely Varmhall Village, where Nell's family is awaiting her return, and the Ridzar Peaks, the location of Drac's home village of Darokarth, and apparently the next Druid Enclave. This episode ended off in just such good spirits. Like, it's so nice to have things come around after so much difficulty, but I'm so proud of these players. I love telling this story with them, and hopefully you guys have been enjoying this as well. I mean, if you're watching this, maybe you've missed everything that's come before, so I really recommend watching the entire series, but this will get you caught up to watch with us live. And speaking of which, the next session that will be going live for episode 34 of the Play Dicely campaign is going to be on August 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to join us on twitch.tv/DicelyDND for when we go live for that session. And until next time, stay kind, stay healthy, and as always, play Dicely.